Dungeon Master, and as well, the keeper of Critical Role, Matthew Mercer.
Hello, everybody. Damn, getting the bass in here, too. Good morning. Wow, that was a hell of an introduction. Thank you. Yeah. Wow. Well, welcome to the Sunday morning Q&A panel. For those who are extremely confused, which I'm sure there's always like one or two, raise your hand if you've no idea really what's going on. Yeah, we got a few back there. Got a couple in here. Welcome. It's only gonna get weirder. So for those folk, and as a kind of just a heads up for the whole thing, my name is Matthew Mercer. I'm a voice actor from Los Angeles, California. I've worked on a bunch of cartoons and video games over the years. I'm also the Dungeon Master for Critical Role, which is an online stream where I myself Dungeon Master for a group of my friends who are also equally nerdy-ass voice actors. And we just roll dice and improv and fight creatures and have adventure stories, and they constantly destroy my plans and mess with me, and so I punish them. But yeah, so that's kind of the overview of what I'm about and why I'm here. This is my first time in Stockholm for this convention. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you guys for having me. I'm already, yeah, cheers! Cheers to Stockholm! Already had an amazing time. I managed to get a little more sleep last night, so that was good. The jet lag was pummeling me yesterday, but today I'm more of a functional human being. I mean, on the scale of functional human that I ever am, which is in its own right relative. But yeah, so I've been doing voiceover for a long time. That's how I got into where my interest in theater kind of dove into. I've been a nerd my whole life, loved cartoons, loved video games, anime, and theater, and realized one day I could maybe fold all my interests together. And after a protracted period of very, what I call the sallow years, where you don't really make any money, and you live in a tiny studio apartment in Los Angeles, subsisting off ramen noodles and whatever food you can steal from a table if you're at a friend's party. And then slowly over time, managed to actually, pay off some bills. So it worked out great in the long run. And then, unbeknownst to myself and most of my friends, playing D&D online happened to turn into this incredible phenomenon and build this incredible community. And as a kid who's been playing D&D for well over 2 decades, and it's a very, very important thing to me to now be able to share it with all of you and to hear your stories and see you guys creating your own narratives and your own characters. It's huge to me. I was mentioning this, I was talking to somebody yesterday about it. It was something very sad to me through the 2000s, watching all of these game stores that I grew up around that were specifically geared towards tabletop gaming and board gaming beginning to die out and dwindle, and watching them close all over, and it was just like watching the end of an era. Something that I loved so much. And then just this past 9 years, let alone these past 5, watching it completely come back stronger than it's ever been has been so freaking cool. And I'm just, man, blown away that now I get to say something like, does anybody here play D&D in a public space and not like try to be quiet and hushed about it? For years, that would be a thing that people turn their heads at you and kind of raise an eyebrow and go like, really? Now they're like, why, do you have a spot? I have a tiefling cleric I haven't had a chance to play yet. Just let me know if you guys, and I'm like, yes, we're winning. So that's pretty cool. But anyway, that's enough about me. Specifically, I want to know what you want to talk about. I want to hear what's kind of simmering in your mind, and we can have a little conversation here about that. So as part of this Q&A, Brittany down here is holding the mic. If you have, yeah, ready. Line up. Respectful. Wow, that was... I couldn't even get the instructions out. That was impressive.
If all my lovely people waiting on the stairs wouldn't mind taking a seat so those behind you can see, you'll get up here in no time. Thank you so much.
That was like watching a transformer shift. Like, the room was all to the center.
This way.
Oh, man.
Still needs to be a functioning staircase a little bit. Fire code. All right.
So as a heads up too, I'll be trying to get through as many questions as I can. I don't know if I'll get through everybody, but I'll try. And as we get towards the end of this panel, I will go into a lightning round, in which case your questions will suddenly become more succinct and my answers will become far more succinct. So be prepared. Be prepared. Sorry. So to begin, hello, what's your name?
Hey, my name is Åsa, and I was here yesterday.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you. What's your thought about having a CritterCon?
CritterCon?
CritterCon.
Apparently the ground is quaking with anticipation. I mean, I'd love to have a CritterCon someday. It's a bigger undertaking than you think. I can't say it's not something we haven't thought of, because it's why not? I've been going to conventions most of my adult life. That's a place that I feel very comfortable in. I'd love to do something like that. I would love one day for that to happen. We have a couple other things that we're working on right now in the moment. We have an animated series that's consuming a lot of our time. Getting the channel up and running was a big thing last year, and now it's trying to see what the next evolution of that is. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. It probably won't be in a few months, but I hope some point down the road there'll be a CritterCon. So just keep your fingers crossed and keep your eyes peeled, I guess. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Emily. We've seen several sexualities and gender identities represented in your NPCs as well as the PCs of other cast members. And Critical Role in general is a very inclusive show. Is this inclusivity something you actively work at, or does it come generally when you create NPCs and the world of Exandria?
That's a good question. I'd say kind of a little bit of all of that. I feel very lucky and thankful that I was raised in an environment that was very open and loving and inclusive. So to me, I grew up just assuming that was how the world was. And then when becoming an adult and learning how that's not the case in a lot of places in the world, and becoming more aware of the trials and tribulations that marginalized groups, have to go through, it was very, and still is an extremely frustrating thing to think the world is in some ways a much better place than it is. So for me, Exandria and what we promote there is a reflection of kind of the world that I would like to view it as, and how I, at one time in my life, did view it as well as trying to project an aspect of what it should be, in my opinion. And, there's always room to be better. There's always room to grow in that too. I'm learning day in, day out how to be better myself and be more inclusive. And there's also a strange thing about trying to represent a lot of perspectives that aren't necessarily my own, which means being open to the idea of what you're doing is risky because you're also trying to tell a tale that you don't have full understanding of. So being open to listen to people who have that experience, take their input, and just learn and be better. And so it's been a wonderful experience for me too, to be more empathic and being able to learn from many different people's life experiences. And so I just hope to have that reflected in the story and promote a place and community of safety and where anybody and everybody is welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi there. I'm another Emily. My question is much quicker than hers, although I really loved it, so thank you for that one. If Swedish was a language in your world, which one would it be? And to give you time to think, I will pose the question to you in Swedish as well. Om svenska var ett språk i D&D, vilket språk skulle det vara?
That's awesome. I feel like there was a brief discussion about Celestial as a language in the campaign. And that's kind of been largely some of our headcanons since that conversation happened, so.
Could I just interject then, because if you really think that Swedish sounds like the Swedish chef, how on earth did you land on Celestial?
Okay, I don't. I spent 2 weeks in Gothenburg years ago. I've heard it pronounced many different ways, and I keep changing how I pronounce it because I keep hearing it differently, and I keep really I'm like Gothenburg, Gothenburg. So I'm just gonna get it wrong entirely.
Göteborg.
Okay, fair. But so I, while you grow up with the Swedish chef, even as a kid, you're like, nah, it's not a language. But it's fun to make fun of my wife who cannot do accents.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, hello. But yeah. So yeah, I do not believe and have not for a very long time assumed that was what Swedish sounds like. So you don't need to worry about that.
Thank you.
Of course, thank you.
Hello, my name is Helena. Thank you so much for coming here.
Thank you for having me.
Well, so my question is there a moment in either campaign where the players have moved you emotionally in a way you didn't expect?
Oh, many times. Most of them. Like, well, I mean, for instance, Scanlan's departure in the first campaign.
Oh, yeah.
I had no idea that was going to happen until Sam just kind of was like, hey, I have an idea for another character. And I was like, okay. It's like, just as a backup character. And so helped him build Terry and everything. And then it wasn't until he dropped that entire, and like he kind of hinted at the idea that like Scanlan might go off on his own. But I was expecting it might be like all right guys, well, I'm gonna go and have a sabbatical and go spend time with my daughter or whatever. And I was like, okay, cool. I didn't realize it was gonna be such an intensely emotional break in the middle of their dynamic. So like that was definitely an example of me going, oh, whoa. Like in the moment, sitting here just behind my DM screen going, thank God I have this little safety blanket here. And it is. Those of you who've DM'd before, that acts as a very, very effective safety blanket at times. I mean, everything with Vax and the Raven Queen, just kind of, none of that was planned. It came out naturally through the narrative, and the more we followed it, the more it was like deeply sad, but deeply beautiful in a lot of ways too. And Liam himself was going through kind of the loss of his mother at the same time, and it ended up being an unexpectedly therapeutic story for him, and honestly for a lot of us in our views of death and the afterlife. Like D&D, man. You're like, what once thought of as the purview of, bearded dudes in basements, of which I have been many times, now an unexpected therapeutic experience to grow closer to what it means to be human. So yeah, no, they constantly challenge me and knock me off my expectations as far as emotions go. And part of my job, and a very difficult job, is to try and just stay neutral.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello, Matthew. Hello. Hey, I'm Frederick. I want to start off with thanking you and other in Critical Role for creating such wonderful content that really affect our emotions in so many ways.
Thank you for coming along with our crazy stories, man.
Me and some friends are planning to share our campaign through podcast, maybe with other creators. And I want to see if you have some advice when starting up such projects, when to share our campaign with the rest of the world.
Sorry, I'm getting that echo thing again I had from last panel. One more time.
Me and my friends gonna podcast our campaign. Planning, and I was wondering if you had some advice for me and other creators that want to share our campaign with the rest of the world.
To share your campaign?
Yeah, share our campaign for podcast for others to listen to.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Podcast. Sorry, I'm also still jet lagged. So, as far as like community goes online, it's very easy to see that there's a lot of people that are putting their campaigns out there. It's a wide world. What that means is, one, there's a lot of stories out there to engage with, which is wonderful. That also means you can't go in with the expectation of being competitive. You know, that's a space that the internet definitely tries to promote in a lot of places. Any sort of media out there, especially classic media and entertainment's like, well, you haven't succeeded unless you've beaten the others. And that's a really unhealthy outlook in a lot of ways. So whether you're getting, 11 viewers or 500 viewers, as long as you have anybody who's sitting there and watching you and your friends around a table making up a story and they're engaging with it, how cool is that? You know, I spent most of my life growing up, and the only people that engaged were, if I was lucky, most of the players at the table. You know, why did you even come here if you're gonna be on your phone the whole time? But sometimes that's just the experience. So like, you have to be thankful for the people that do come there and promote other people and see if they're interested in cross-promoting as well, you know? Get rid of the competitive aspect and instead consider, the classic adage of, a high tide raises all ships. You know, we're all here to support each other, and as long as you're going out of your way to try and lift other people up, that's a lesson for them to also learn to lift you up. And I mean, imagine a world where we're all lifting each other up as opposed to tearing each other down. That'd be a pretty cool place.
It's your world.
Good question.
Thank you.
Hi again, Matt. My name is Alma. And I want to ask you about Critical Role Land. First of all, we have a lot of woods up north in Sweden if you want to have it somewhere.
I mean, if someone wants to donate some plots of land, I'm just saying.
And I was wondering, what would be your favorite attraction at Critical Role Land, if you can fantasize it out?
Oh, man. I mean, have you guys heard, I haven't been there yet, but you heard about like the Galaxy's Edge Star Wars experience at Disney, where you like can build your own lightsaber, like workshop? Imagine if they had that, but it was building your character. Oh. You know, where it'd be like, all right, okay, you're a warlock. Well, then you go into the warlock room, which has all the different accoutrements that you could purchase to like create an outfit. So you walk in just like a person, and then walk out, you're OC. I think that'd be pretty cool.
A haunted house for Travis?
What's that?
A haunted house for Travis?
That's a given. We just never let him out. He's just there every day. This is the eternal hell that we force Travis into for our own entertainment. Sure, yeah, I'm down. Though we are researching the haunted house right now and locking in. Thanks to you people who gave to the Kickstarter. We do get to torture him very soon. And as a person who's been through many haunted houses with Travis, I cannot wait for you to see. It is one of my favorite experiences in life, watching a gargantuan man become the most frightened, ready to punch anything figure. It's just wound up. He's this ball of like, yeah, which is why we all stand far behind him. Like, we force him to go in first and we all stay like 10, 15 feet back. But we wait for like the people who went ahead of us to like go for a while so that there's no way he can be telegraphed what's coming. And it's gonna be beautiful. It's gonna be so good. So yeah, haunted house is a good idea. I like that.
I hope you're not too overwhelmed by the sheer amount of us, especially yesterday.
It's a lot. It's wonderful. It's a lot.
But now that you know how many critters there are in Sweden and Scandinavia in general, what do you think are the chances for a live show in Sweden at some point?
I don't mean to alarm you, but I think the room's haunted. The rumblings, unexpected. I mean, I would love that. It's a logistical question in finding a venue, and then also bringing the equipment there and bringing the crew to go there. You know, we're just now being able to explore this year, doing other live shows beyond the one we do at Gen Con every year. So it's slowly figuring out what we're comfortable doing and what the team can accomplish, and not end up like destroying our budget kind of a field. I'd love to, and I mean, we definitely have talked about as the years go on, seeing the possibility of doing live shows outside of the US. So it's definitely something we're thinking about and working towards. I don't know when, because we're still working out all those details, and we're still a very small team of people that are trying to do a lot of things all the time. Brittany can attest to that. And I'm so thankful we have such a great team of people that have come on. And it's weird to say that we have a team of people. We're just playing D&D 4 years ago, and now it's like we have like a company. And small, but like people, employees, that their job is to make sure that we're doing the best we can, and it's really cool. So hopefully, because I would like to do that.
Thank you.
Of course, thank you.
Hi.
You look awesome, by the way.
Thank you. I was wondering which favorite NPC you have to play yourself,
Which NPC I would like? My favorite one?
What's your favorite one?
I mean, okay. It depends on what I enjoy out of the NPC. If it's creeping out my players, I really enjoyed Senekir from Campaign 1, which was funny because he was completely improvised, and it was like, oh, I gave myself a gift. So there's that. When it comes to just a person that really I just enjoy stepping into, I'm sure it's no surprise. It's either Pumat Sol or Gilmore are the two. Gilmore because he's a reflection of a part of me that I don't get to kind of express very often, and he's I don't know, there's one of those characters that you portray because there's a part of you that wants to be more like that, you know, and so stepping into those shoes, like a lot of D&D characters, you know, you create something, you're like, I wish I could be more like this, so I can spend more time in this space and hopefully take more of that into myself. And Pumat because, I don't know, it's like putting in an old pair of shoes. It's like, it's just really comfortable to just kind of sit in. There's something about the timber and the speech pattern that just, I don't know, it's kind of lulls me into a happy mood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm Andreas.
Oh.
I want to know what are some of your favorite spells?
Favorite spells?
Yeah.
Ooh. I mean, like, there is something so wonderfully simple about the classic fireball. It's just a fiery explosion. Everything dies. There's on fire. But to me, I like the spells that have a lot of creative utility. Things that's, like, for instance, Mordenkainen's Mansion or Leonin's Tiny Hut. Spells that most power players and power gamers would read through and be like, why would anybody ever pick that spell? And yet, in the right hands, a creative player can find a lot of really interesting and weird uses for it. There's spells like Awaken. where you can bring things that normally don't have life and intelligence to it to an intelligent point, and all of a sudden you've created an NPC essentially. That's too much power in a player's hands, and that's why I love it. Oh, those are great. Any of illusion spells are great because they just have huge utility, and once again, kind of are only limited by the player's imagination, and that to me is the key to Magic users. You know, like, don't get me wrong, I love me some combat, you know, heavy characters, and being able to consider, you know, melee weapons and combat elements in a very creative kind of action movie way. But to me, one of the draws of Magic is that, you know, there aren't as many limits on the weird shit you can do. And that to me is so much fun in the game. So yeah, I think illusion magic in general is another huge fun piece for me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello. My name is Victor, and I have a question for you about dunamancy. I play a transmutation wizard that likes divination as well, and I feel like dunamancy is a mix of both. But I would like you to elaborate your thought process behind dunamancy.
Yeah, totally. So when I was building, world building for Campaign 2 and kind of getting into the real meat of Wildmount, one of the things I wanted to do is to redesign the Drow culture. One, a lot of it stems from completely unnecessary old tropes and, you know, racial coding that is just not great. And I just didn't like the idea of Drow being this thing that they're only beneath the ground in Drow societies, and if you see one in the outside world, everyone's gonna hate you and probably kill you on sight. I'm like, cool, so why is that even an option in your game then? You know, a player character that you're out of the gate just gonna have a hard time doing anything. So I wanted to create a Drow culture that wasn't so steeped in that and the idea of them all being evil and the kind of the binary morality of it. And as part of that, I wanted to create something unique for that. And as part of their religion and some of the capabilities, I began to think of dunamancy, which to me was wanting to bring a little more of an aspect of quantum physics, astrophysics, manipulation of time and space, density, gravity, you know, those things that I had a personal obsession with growing up, being a physics nerd, because why not? And that's the thing too, is like there are elements of some magic that kind of lean in that space. You know, reverse gravity definitely is gravitational type spell, but it's kind of one of the only ones aside from like levitation and fly can kind of fit in that space. But not a lot really toys with the really weird stuff you can do with gravity and density. And yeah, I started making spells, and a lot of them are inside jokes for physics. I have one spell that I made called Cascade of Quandary that is essentially like a Schrodinger's cat spell. So yeah, I just started making fun stuff up to kind of tickle my little physics nerve and bring a little bit more of that spacey, crazy, weird science type magic into it. So yeah, that's kind of where it came from.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello, welcome. Good to see you again.
Thank you. So I had a question prepared, but they said I should pick another one. But I kind of want to go with the first one. What do you think?
Well, if you keep it short then.
I was wondering if you could get Misha Collins as a guest on your campaign.
Misha Collins?
Yes. Does anyone love Castiel in here?
There's a couple things about guesting in Critical Role. One, a lot of people recommend guests.
I guess.
And there's a lot of people that would be awesome to have on the show, but it's not a who's the next celebrity we can grab or who's the you know, what's the community clamoring for. I never want a guest in the show to be like a guest spot in a talk show or, you know, somebody that just gets dragged in because it's the thing that their manager cooked them up for. I want it to be somebody that genuinely wants to just come and play some good D&D. And that's a huge passion of mine with any of the guests that come in. We have plenty of people, and actually some pretty prominent people that have contacted us, you know, about, you know, my client would want to, you know, should guest on your show because you had a big Kickstarter and it'd probably be a good promotional thing. And I'm like, nah. But if they email me personally or you meet in some sort of a social environment and they start either nerding out about their past at D&D and wanting to get back into it, or like Sumali, who's been a longtime friend of mine who had never played before but had said like many times, like, I've always wanted the opportunity. It sounds cool and something I really love. She didn't ask to be on the show. We just had a conversation about D&D after a VO session. I think it was after a Voltron session, actually. And the one over there. And at the end of that conversation, I was like, well, would you ever want to come on the show? You know? So like, I like it being organic, and I like it being something that comes from a place of honestly wanting to play. So if I ever had the opportunity to run into Misha Collins, and Misha Collins was like super cool and totally down to just roll some dice and was genuinely interested from that standpoint, hell yeah, I'd be all about it.
He seems like a good fit.
We shall see if time works in that favor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Matthew. Nice to see you face to face like this. It's such a treat.
No, make it even weirder if you want.
Thank you very much. My question is, what are some of the revelations you've gotten in campaign 1 and taken with you into campaign 2?
Ooh, that's actually a good question. Now make it less weird for you. Campaign 1 was definitely for a lot of the players their first campaign. And so I definitely wanted to keep it very standard high fantasy, kind of still their introduction to the genre and everything, even though we got to play more as it went on. What I learned through that process is, well, morality is a dubious thing with players that are new. And sometimes it can be, well, okay, one thing I did learn is you have to sometimes give room to breathe. It's very easy to constantly have dangers and challenges going for an extended period of time, and the players never have a chance to relax, never have a chance to do some downtime. So having to try and engineer ways that even with the meta-narrative continuing, they feel comfortable taking a break and having some downtime and doing some activities. Otherwise, like for instance, almost the entirety of the Chroma Conclave arc in the first campaign, I was excited for, but there was a lot of episodes where they were constantly go, 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 which is fun in a lot of ways, but it didn't give them enough time to really expand and kind of find some time to just be people, which is also a lot of the fun of the game. So I learned that lesson a bit, which is I'm time with the second campaign, trying to give moments of intensity, and there are intense things happening, but not constantly be reminding them like, you have to go, 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 now everything's gonna die if you don't go now, go, God, you're gonna lose the game, go! Also, for me, in the first campaign, morality was very black and white. It was very good versus evil. It was very clear who the villain was. And that's a great way to do it, and I'm not saying one way is right or not. The second campaign, I wanted to play more with the spectrum of relative morality. I can't say that makes a better game necessarily, and from a player standpoint, it can be a little frustrating when you don't know who the bad guys really are because you have to pick. It's much easier to be like, oh, I know exactly who the bad guys are. We have to go to defeat them. But if you ask the players the question, I don't know, are you the bad guys? And the player's like, I don't, don't make me make difficult choices, you know? That's frustrating to them. That's not a bad thing either. Like even just the most recent episode we did, they ended with Liam was like, it was such a frustrating episode. Doesn't mean it's a bad thing from a player standpoint. And I asked him after, and I'm like, I'm sorry, was it frustrating? I didn't mean to frustrate you guys. He's like, no, we love the game. It was a great episode, but it's just frustrating from a player standpoint to like not know exactly what the right path is. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's what I wanted. So that's the big lesson I'm going through in the second season is finding out that fine balance between an open narrative and not letting the players feel like they're kind of lost in the wind. Can't say I'm doing it entirely right because it's all an experiment, but we're trying.
Well, I love your plot twists, so thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm Victor.
Hello, Victor.
And I was wondering, because you create so many interesting NPCs, are there any NPCs that you've created and really liked, but the players have just completely missed them?
Yeah, no, there's been a number of encounters and both like experiences in towns and NPCs I created. Even at Uthadurn, I had like the whole subsect that I created based in some elements of Mika's character, her backstory that never came up. And so I spent, 30 minutes of my day outlining the relationship between these NPCs and this apothecary and this whole thing in case they go there that might lead into another possible subquest. Never happened. But that's fine too, because the things I like about that, I can always put in my pocket and then introduce it another part in the game. As a dungeon master or a game master of any game, just because the players don't engage with or go in a direction to go after something you worked hard on means that it's lost forever. Because if you tailor it somewhere else, the only person that knows that it's reused material is you. The player's like, that's so cool, and yes, so unique, and you're like, yes, it was. Totally made that up right now just for all of you at this spot. Once again, Dungeon Mastering, bullshitting with confidence.
Thank you.
So the pin on that is, yes, there are many NPCs, but I ain't telling you because they might show up later on.
Hello. My name is Frida, and I was wondering which story arc from campaign 2 is your favorite?
Oh man, it's funny you say that because like there are many arcs, but there's such a big macro arc that I'm weaving this whole thing through that to me all I see often is like the big macro arc, and I'm like, story arcs, it's all one story. Oh right, yeah, there's like little bits there. Man, I'm really partial to the Menagerie Coast Ukatoa stuff with Ford. That was fascinating. What I'm really enjoying, oh, there it is. And as soon as I said it, I knew it was coming. It had to. What I'm really enjoying with this campaign is Travis with Grog, last campaign, specifically made a character that wouldn't have a lot of story. You know, even when I shoehorned stuff with his hurting, he was like, oh no, I have to go do story stuff. And you know, and he did great, but it was a short form element, and beyond that, and you look at it, we've been also looking at it a lot with doing the animated series and kind of breaking down all the characters and their stories. Grog was kind of like the constant, the rock that didn't, he had arcs and he changed a bit, but he was kind of the most of a center point to everyone else's wild narratives in the first campaign. So with this one, I was really excited to see Travis build a really rich character's backstory with a lot of mystery and things that were really meaty for me to sink into, and to watch him embrace it. And it's just gotten awesome. And he looks so scared half these times. And after sessions, we'll have like different dream sequences with Ukatoa or recent things that have happened, and the game will be finished, and he'll stop me in the hallway and be like, dude, what the hell's happening? This is so crazy. And I love that. So like, I think Ford's arc in particular, just because of the comparison to where Grog was to me, is really cool because it's like watching a player blossom and embrace the unknown and be okay with it being a little different and scary and uncomfortable, you know, kind of being out in the open and having all the players looking at him and going, oh, what's going on with you now, buddy? And he's like, I don't know. So far, I'd say probably that one's my favorite if I had to pick one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey,
What's up, Caleb?
Hello. My name is Sebastian, other than Caleb. And one of my favorite things about watching D&D with voice actors is all of the crazy sound effects that you somehow make come out of your mouth. So my question is there like a sound effect that is your favorite, or that you're really proud of being able to do, or that you wish you would have been able to do but hasn't come up yet, or something like that? I mostly just want to make you do sound effects.
Aye. I'm picking up what you're laying down. Yeah, when you spend a lot of time alone as a kid, you make a lot of sound effects. I've always liked it. I like doing mouth Foley. It's fun. A lot is because of my dad. My dad would do the same thing. He'd make weird sound effects for the things he's doing. He'd bump into the shelf and like, sorry. So yeah, and it's something I didn't think about until all of a sudden people began tweeting like, that was crazy. You sounded like a bottle opening. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess people don't do that. That is one I'm pretty proud of. Like that, you know, that kind of pulling out of the bottle. That was fun. I don't know if I've done this one on the show, but I have a sound for like a thick molasses like syrup that's dripping out of something, which is like a. It's fun. Arrow and knife hits are fun. And for the smaller one, or the for the larger ones. You got the pitch and the vibration. It's always fun. Screeches. A lot of different types of monster screeches are always fun, like the high pitch, like stuff like that. A lot of sounds I can make when it's sucking in, which is the fun part. You know, not exhaling, but inhaling as you like clamp the throat and. Often don't, yeah. There's somebody out there's practicing. Good on you. But a lot of times you don't know. Oh God. I don't know how they found me. So yeah, and those are some of my favorites, I think, and like Smoldering Fire too. It sounds much cooler in my head. Most of these do, but then there was one fucking time that because I don't practice these in advance. They just kind of come out, and I was like describing the epic battle horns in campaign 1. And in my head, I was like, all right, epic battle horn. In my head, I'm like, you know, big, and I'm like, and to this day, the players still give me shit about that. To this day. And you know what? I earned it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
First time using
Hey, you look awesome, by the way.
Yep. We have
Damn right.
we have yesterday morning, and I'm Shen. I'm from Taiwan, but now I live in Gotland, the medieval island we have mentioned to you yesterday.
What was the question again? Sorry.
And the question is, I thought about the player's background. Do you think it's important to communicate first with the players, or you study their background and give a surprise when their background is mentioned?
Oh, good question there. Well, I think first off, communication with the players is key to anything at the beginning of a campaign, both with the kind of story that wants to be told.
Is just all the details, or just the like description?
It's not all the details necessarily. I think just well, first off, just making sure that everyone's on the same page when it comes to the campaign themes and comfort levels and everything, with the kind of things you want to tackle in the game. As far as the player backgrounds, it's up to the players to provide as much or as little as they want. I've had some campaigns I've run where the players give me extensive, 10-page backstories or mini novelettes about their, character's history. It's like mini scenes with dialogue, and it's their extent of writing essentially pre-fan fiction for their own character. Then I've had some players that are like, yeah, he's wandering the land for power. Parents died. Hates monsters. You're like, and? Like, that's it. So, I think having those conversations are great because if it's, in that instance, if you don't think that's enough that the player might not realize they will enjoy more, you don't have to force them by any means. But also, that's a blank slate. Like, cool, well, if that's all you're gonna tell me, that's a whole lot of room for me to really mess with your story as you progress. It's totally open. And there's also nothing wrong with going into it with little story. Sometimes people enjoy finding the character as they play. So I don't think it should ever be required necessarily. My trick that I've done for previous campaigns is if you really want to give the players a reason to tell a story, don't force them to, but those that turn in some sort of a backstory, they get like a bonus magic item at the start of the game. They start with a little more experience. That way they don't have to, but they have incentive. But yeah, I'd say any sort of background information the players can give you, express to them that that's more ways that you can tie them into the story and they can feel like they really live and kind of have a stake in the world that they get a chance to play in. And if they don't have that, then that's an element of their experience that they might be robbing themselves of feeling so well woven into the space. But I don't think it's necessary. No. Good question.
Thanks for answering and thanks for blessing from the traveler.
Thank you. Oh, this is awesome costume after awesome costume after awesome costume. This is great.
Thank you. So this one actually asked my question, so I'm just gonna develop on that. I had a little moment of panic. But yeah, I'm a fairly new DM. I started because I got the courage from Critical Role to actually take that step and start DMing. And
awesome. Welcome.
Thank you. And one of my favorite things with DMing is that thing with interweaving the character stories and backstories and seeing them develop their characters and seeing them like get excited about their character's backstory being brought into the narrative. And since that question was already asked, I want to go like, how do you balance that? How do you make sure you can weave in everyone's backstory without like, okay, we're gonna have 20 episodes now on this one character and everyone else gets left to the background?
Right. That's actually an interesting question. And to that point too, like, not everyone has to contribute an extensive backstory, but it's fun to trick them with the previous mentioned thing to them unintentionally getting invested in their character. It's like, I guess I'll write this because it gives me an extra magical item. And then an hour later, they're like, oh man, now I really want to play this character. And you're like, haha, gotcha. Depending on the type of game you want to run, it doesn't have to be about the character's stories necessarily. Some games, people want to have a backstory, it's just their backstory. And they're like, their goal in life isn't to deal with this. This is stuff that just happened that defines who I am now. And they just want to see what other adventures out there completely unrelated. And that's another good conversation to have with the players too. As far as weaving it in, it can depend. Do you want the players to focus on a meta-narrative that is kind of universally something new to all of them? Or do you want them to be focused on helping each other deal with like standing threads and problems that exist in their world, and it's more of a personal story universally throughout the campaign? Is it a balance of the both? To me, part of the fun is surprising the players with elements of their backstory at unexpected times. And not necessarily making it the focus, but giving them the option if they want to keep pulling that thread. You know, if you force it in their face, you know, somebody has like a backstory with, you know, there's this guy who maybe might have murdered my brother, and if I ever see him, it's probably not gonna go well. Like session 2, you're like, by the way, here he is, walking up to your face. And the player's like, oh, this is too soon. You know, it's a lot to throw at them. So in those cases, sometimes it's fun to like tease them and give them the option. For that, in that example, someone mentions the name of that person. Like, yeah, they passed through town a couple weeks ago. And they can go like, well, I have that information. What do I want to do with it? Am I ready to tackle that yet? Or do I want to go and keep that in mind and maybe come back later with that information? So for me, it's finding little threads in the world that they can pursue to lead them to their backstories, and then let the players take the active choice to pursue them. In some cases, it's thrust upon them, like when Taliesin writes me a backstory of a character who you are dressed as, who doesn't remember anything about their backstory. Then there's no thread for them to pull. Then it's a whole campaign of me just slapping them in the face with stuff, up to a point. But maybe at the post-campaign wrap-up, I can talk about all the stuff that I had planned. But that's an example too. Like, you decide how much is something the players might pursue, or if there isn't really much you think they'd be interested in going after, what things you can slap them in the face with and be like, hey, look at the shiny thing. Do you want to go after the shiny thing? No? All right, keep going after that. I'll just put that shiny thing in the pocket till later. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
No worries. Hello.
Hello there, my masterful, magnificent master.
Give me the vapors.
My name is Anders, and I'm going to ask a non-critter related question. Because I remember that...
Be careful, you are surrounded.
Oh yeah, I have the jet ready. 2 years ago, you had a collaboration with Larian Studios, and now they are making a D&D game.
Oh, right,
So I'm wondering, how many characters will you voice in Baldur's Gate 3?
The answer is I have no idea. I hope to. I would love that. I know some people at the Larian Studios, and I met with one of them, a friend of mine who I worked with when I did the GM mode thing for Divinity, just to tell him when he was out for E3, like, holy shit, you're working on Baldur's Gate 3! So that was really cool, just from a nerd standpoint. But I don't know. They're European based. I think they cast out of Europe as well. So it's up to them if they want to have any of us come and play in the space. You know, as an actor, I generally don't go out of my way to go to certain people and be like, hey, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It'd be great to be in your thing, because that can come across as annoying, and you know, imagine having that at all sides is a problem with such a big property as Baldur's Gate. But I hope so, because man, that would be amazing.
That would be awesome.
Dude, I'm right there with you, man. So fingers crossed. Thank you, man. And be sure to send your emails to Kayla at LarianStudios.net. No, don't do that.
Hi. I'm like, what, the 7th Emily today?
Good. Hey, it's an Emily Sunday.
And I'm here with my little brother, who's actually responsible for getting me into this Critical Role mess to begin with. So,
Hell yeah. Raise your hand, little brother. That you? Yeah. Good man.
Thanks, bro. So, my question is, if you could put an RPG into any like pre-existing media, like a movie, a show, anything, what would you like to play around with? Mine would be, obviously, the Mighty Boosh. Old Greg is the most demented bard in existence.
Oh my God. Old Greg as like a monster stat block would be incredible. Like a whole adventure path in the old swamp. Oh my God, that'd be great. So anything to bring into RPG media. Oh man. Well, right now I'm writing High Off the Dark Crystal series, so like seeing that brought into like an RPG, like a proper, well-written tabletop game would be amazing. I would totally play a podling. Hup is best. I would say, oh man, the Dune series I think would be brought in for like a good RPG system. I think they probably have been one or two in the past, but that was in the era where RPG systems were usually weighed down with a lot of tables and strange esoteric math, and would be better put into an Excel document than played at the table with friends. So I could see like a newer iteration that would be great, especially with the movie coming out. So now people who never heard of the books or never watched any of the previous forms of the Dune, series media could be like, oh, this is a game based on that movie, and we're like, it's cool. At least you're playing the game. So those would be fun. Oh man, this is a deep rabbit hole. I can go down here for forever. DuckTales RPG would be great. Be all about that. Especially since they keep extending the universe of the new DuckTales to include like all the old Disney afternoon cartoons, and I'm just like, oh my God, you thought Marvel was doing cool stuff with Infinity War. Disney's knocking it out of the park here.
You should see what we Europeans usually do to Donald Duck. He's a superhero here.
Good to know. Oh man, all right, I'll keep thinking on that. I may have more answers as we go through the panel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Matthew.
Hello.
My name is Martin.
Good to see you.
And yesterday, during the quickfire questions, you were asked which 3 people you would like to DM for if you had a choice, and one of the answers you said was Angelina Jolie.
Yeah.
Can you tell us the story of why you would like to DM for her?
I'll try and keep this quick. So, Barbara Voigt is the mother of John Voight, who's the father of Angelina Jolie. So Angelina Jolie's grandmother was best friends for many years with my grandmother, Elaine. So when I was very young, like 6 months or so, she would bring me over in my little like baby carrier to Barbara Voigt's house, and she was watching me when my parents were working. And during that time, there were times where a younger Angelina would be forced to watch me. My grandma likes to tell the story about how Angelina Jolie was there at the table. I can't remember how age she was, but she was like 3 or something. Remember how much older she is than me. And apparently, I do what babies do, which is, poop your pants. And a little bassinet, like, and just ruin dinner. So that was a funny story. Cut to a couple years ago at Ren Fair, I'm super drunk. And wandering out, we're about to leave, and it's like nearing sunset, and I'm wandering outside, I look over, and there's this woman with a hood up who's like looking through all the daggers on the side, and I'm like, holy shit, that's Angelina Jolie. I'm gonna go talk to her. Because I'm drunk and do stupid things. And so she's like obviously trying not to be bothered, and she has her hood up. I'm like, sorry about you. Just want to say, a big fan of your work. My grandmother knew your grandma, and when I was a baby, I pooped on her table. And she was like, okay. I was like, yeah. Anyway, have a good day. And I remember it like, I was so drunk that day, it was like little flashes, where it's like, oh, hey, blackout. What's going over here? Blah, like, it's all just, and that was one of the flashes, was the Angelina Jolie experience. And the next morning I woke up and went, oh no. So my reason for wanting to game with her is 1, to just like introduce the game of D&D. I think she'd be fun in it. And 2, to like apologize for what I did at Ren Fair. So there you go.
Hello.
Hello.
I I was wondering, what was the most exciting and difficult part about you guys starting your own studio and taking the reins on your brand?
It's a great question. The most exciting thing is having complete control over what we want to do. With any sort of media production in television, internet, anything in this town, you're almost 99% of the time under the umbrella of some larger corporation or company, because you usually have to get the money and the equipment and the people to start it, and that usually means that you're working and partnering with a bigger entity. And we worked for years with Geek and Sundry and Legendary, and it was wonderful, but there was something about seeing where this was going and wanting to be in control of its destiny. And so one of the really exciting things was being able to step away, starting our own studio, and just not have to go through approvals upstairs, not having to, talk to a bunch of people that have no idea what we're trying to accomplish and barely know what our company or our show does, and have them make decisions based on that. We don't have to go through that process anymore. We just look at each other and go, can we do this? Do we want to do this? Let's do this. And so that's really exciting. It's also very scary because you're responsible. You don't have anyone else to blame if things don't turn out right or things are delayed. And we're once again, we're a small team trying to accomplish a lot. And I'm really thankful that we have so many wonderful people working with us to make this happen. And Marisha is just kicking ass as the creative director and helping helm the channel. So, damn right, she's earned that. Plus, it's just fun to say that Travis is your CEO. Because one, he's good at it. Two, he's just a big doofus. And it's just great that your CEO is a doofus. I love it. So those are really exciting. Challenging, you're responsible for everything. The blame always falls on you if things don't go right, or if things change in the schedule. You learn a lot of mistakes and learn from a lot of mistakes. It's expensive, and it's a lot of it's asking for long hours at times because you're trying new things, and especially the first year was just building the foundation of the studio. And that is a whole lot of preparation. It's like laying out the concrete to hopefully build the house on, while everyone's going, what's the house like? I want to watch the house right now. You're like, I'm just trying to lay the concrete. They're like, but we're here to watch the house. And you're like, cool, here's some sticks. It kind of looks like a house. Look at the house. Let me finish the concrete. So it's been a year of that kind of process, and you guys have been very patient, and thank you for working with us through our learning process. We're a little more solid now, but we're also now wanting to try new things. As soon as we get our footing, we're like, cool, how can we work even harder to not have our footing anymore? Because we're obsessed workaholics. So yeah, there's a lot of facets in there, but those are probably some of the more exciting and the more scary elements of it too, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you, it was a great question. All right, we are now hitting the final 5 minutes of the panel, which means we are in the lightning round. So prepare your questions to be succinct. Prepare for a succinct answer. Go!
So you have inspired my voice acting a lot. So I was wondering, how important is voice acting for your NPCs?
It's not necessarily important, but it is a useful tool. However, voice is only one facet of how to perform a character. Physicality is huge. If I tell you, you walk into a cave and you see a dark troll and the troll turns to you, what do you want from me? Come and I'll tell you. My voice didn't change, but physically, the troll all of a sudden has its whole persona. Or a shopkeeper comes up to you with the same voice and goes, you, there, down on your knees. I'm gonna call the guards here. I don't trust you. Same voice hasn't changed, but the physicality already gave a different persona. So voice, not that important. Honestly, physicality, a lot more interesting.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hey.
My name is Evelina.
Pleasure.
I have a question that ties into an earlier question. When you create the NPCs, how much do you challenge gender roles and social norms?
Sometimes it's intentional, sometimes it just feels natural. Like I'll create a character, not with a specific type of representation in mind. I'll just create the character personality and their description, and then realize who they are. Kind of let them tell me and inform me who they are as a person. What I'm finding is challenging, and I'm hoping to do better in the future, is how to find ways to convey these things when it doesn't come up naturally in conversation. There have been numerous characters and NPCs in the campaigns that are, trans women, trans men, but trying to find a way to express that in a conversation without it feeling shoehorned or unnatural, or feeling like it's tropey, or I'm doing it for woke points, you know, like, is something I'm trying to figure out still. So, but normally it's sometimes it's going, I feel like this community needs a specific point of representation in this story at this point. That will be something I will create, and sometimes they just tell me and inform me who they are.
You're doing a great job.
Hi.
Hello.
As a DM, do you still dream up player characters for yourself?
Oh, all the time.
If so, what is your next player character?
I still want to play my dwarf bard one day. I want to do that sometime. I kind of created my whole I created a bard subclass years ago called the College of the Maestro that I want to revisit because now I've learned a lot more about game design that I want to do a better version of. But I made that because I wanted to play that bard years ago. So that'd be the next one. If not that, I really want to try and lean some time into a super lawful, good goody two-shoes paladin.
Awesome, thank you.
Just make it real hard for murder hobos to get around. Thank you.
Hi. I came in here not knowing who you are.
Oh, well, welcome to the chaos.
But this is awesome. I really love this community already.
Oh,
and stuff. So, going fast, what's your favorite fan experience you've ever had?
My favorite fan experience I've ever had? Oh, man. Oh, that's so hard to choose. I've had so many. I will say, it's not a single fan experience, but it's a recurring fan experience. And this attributes to anybody out here who puts their art out in the world. You never know the impact your art will have on other people. And oftentimes you'll never know, but take heart knowing that it does have impact. Oftentimes I meet people that talk to me about the show and our story, finding them at a very hard time in their life. And sometimes in places where they didn't have anywhere else to turn and were considering ending their life. And then the show and the community gave them a light that carried them through that darkness, and now they've found a whole rejuvenated form of what they want to be and who they want to be around. And that to me is such an incredible, powerful experience every time. And I'm just, for anybody who's had that experience in this room, I'm so glad you're still here. Please, that's wonderful. And yeah, that affects me deeply every single time.
Thank you. Tjena, Matthew.
Hello.
My question is, can you say anything in Swedish, or do you want me to teach you something?
I know utfart.
Sorry.
Utfart. Utfart, yeah, fart in general is the best, yeah. It's amazing. The fact that that's on so many signs in this city is the greatest thing.
Is there anything you want to be able to say?
Sure, teach me where's the nearest restroom, because that's going to be useful.
The nearest restroom?
Yes.
Vart är den närmaste toaletten?
One more time.
Vart är den närmaste toaletten?
Val? I'm already out of the gate. Vart är
den
närmaste
toaletten?
Toaletten.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Good job.
Unfortunately, I think for time in the room, this is the last question, unfortunately, guys. I'm so sorry. But thank you for being patient.
Yeah, it's fine. Hi. I'm fine, because I get to ask the question. I'm fine, because I get to ask the question. Sorry, guys. If you can have a soundtrack from a game, a movie, or a show to have a critical role, what would it be?
Oh, man. I would say probably, oh man, there's so many. I know. He's asking me these questions that are making me think. Which is fine. My instinct is to go honestly with the old school Conan the Barbarian soundtrack.
Yes.
Like those cheesy, awesome fantasy movies have some of the greatest, like, classic fantasy, epic, sweeping music soundtracks. It's great. So I'd go with that.
Yeah. Great.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Matt. Thanks.
Thank you. And thank you guys so much. Thank you for waiting. Thank you all for coming to the panel and the Q&A. Thank you for having me.
play the soundtrack again? Yeah, at the end. Just do it at the end, yeah?
No. Thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful time at the convention the rest of the weekend. Don't forget to love each other.
Can you